if you're wise and you leverage it, you can use your TEDx to build your brand, increase your speaking fees, and get more speaking engagements. Unfortunately, that's where most speakers, TEDx talkers, and TEDx coaches drop the ball, because the average TEDx gets a couple hundred applications. If I've got to go through all those, I'm not looking for a reason to give you an audition. I'm looking for the first thing I can find to throw you in the no pile. And if I think you can't follow directions, it's like a friend of mine does a job application to hire people for his business. And he puts landmines in there like that, small mention of please attach a resume. And fewer than half attach a resume. So I don't think they understand that's part of the hiring process.
Yes.
And it's part of the TEDx process. She applied 80 times, 80. She called me crying. I said, Amy, it's a good topic. It's a good topic. You got a book on Amazon. It's a bestseller in a category that's very difficult. I mean, can you send me what you're sending the TEDx committees? She did. And you know what? Grammar good, I's dotted, T's crossed, but it just didn't sing. So I said to her, would it be okay if I put a little of my crazy creativity on it? She goes, what have I got to lose? 80. Within 5 applications, she got TEDx Beacon Street, Boston, which told me that it's that creativity that catches their attention, forced them to read more of the application.
If you want to build a legitimate, profitable online business without shiny objects, without the hypey gimmicks, and without the stress and overwhelm, if you want to make more money without having to be present online all day, every day, pumping out content that nobody sees and hustling DMs to generate leads and sales, then this is the place for you. Welcome to the Digital Trailblazer Podcast, your online business university, where you'll learn how ordinary people start from ground zero with no influence, no email list or audience to sell to, and no business or marketing experience, and go from working 9-to-5 jobs to building successful 6- and 7-figure online businesses and all the steps in between. Learn the strategies that worked and what didn't. Learn the mistakes that they made and how to avoid them, and then learn their plans for scaling their businesses and taking things to the next level. All so that you can build your business faster and easier and make more money without sacrificing the things that are important to you in your life. I'm your host, Leah Ray Getz, and with me is my husband, Todd. Now, let's get to it with today's guest. Hey, Digital Trailblazers. With us today is Frank King. Now, Frank is doing some amazing stuff with TEDx Talks. He's actually the world record holder with 12 TEDx Talks. So we're going to dive into all the nitty-gritty of how to actually use TED Talks, how to get into them, all of that good stuff today, and how to use them to build your business. But I want to welcome you first, and then we're going to jump into how this actually came to be, because you have quite an interesting history and story before all of this.
Where do I begin to tell the story of how great love? I think that's the love story of Ryan O'Neal, I do believe. I started in 4th grade. I told a joke in 4th grade. The kids laughed. The teacher was hysterical. She had to excuse herself to go to the teacher's lounge. She was laughing so hard. And I thought to myself at 9 years old, I'm going to be a stand-up comedian. And then in high school, I took drama, but never got a good part, never got a speaking part. And I thought, if I wait until the talent show and I do stand-up comedy, I can write, direct, and produce my own little show every night. So I did it, and I won. Of course, I beat the accordion player and the folk dancers. It wasn't really a tough victory. I told my mama, I'm going to California to be a comedian. Well, education's a big deal in my family. So she goes, no, son, you're going to college first. I don't care what you do when you get done. You can be a goat herder for all I care, but you're going to be a goat herder with the college degree. So I went to UNC Chapel Hill, and, a good liberal arts education never hurt anybody. Then made for the West Coast. As luck would have it, the insurance company I went to work for in Raleigh, North Carolina, had a branch in San Diego. They sent me there at the beginning of the end of my insurance career because there's a comedy store branch, a branch of the world famous comedy store up on Sunset in LA in San Diego. And on April 1st, 84, I did my first open mic night. Halfway through my little 5 minutes, I heard a voice inside my head, you're home. Decided at that moment I was going to do it for a living. Had no idea how or how hard that could be. 18 months later, December of 85, I said to my girlfriend, now my wife of 38 years, I'm going on the road to be a comic full time. Do you want to come along for the ride? Figuring she'd go, hell no. She goes, yeah. So, the job, the apartment, jumped in my tiny little Dodge Colt, and we were on the road together nonstop, 2,629 nights in a row, comedy club to comedy club, beer bar to beer bar, and worked with some amazing people. Dennis Miller, Adam Sandler, Kevin James, Rosie Ellen, Dana Carvey, Kevin Nealon, Jeff Foxworthy, Ron White. Opened up for Randy Travis, for Lou Rawls, 2 shows at the Hotel del Coronado on New Year's Eve. You'll never find another love like mine. Nice guy. And the Beach Boys. And it was a great time to be doing comedy, 85, 95. And then the comedy boom busted. I'd always been a clean comic. So I made a jump from club comedy to corporate comedy, doing comedy conventions, a rubber chicken circuit. Which somebody, what's the difference between a club comic and a corporate comic? $5,000 a night plus travel. I'm no math major. That made sense. So then I rode that horse at the end of 07 when the world financial markets collapsed.
Right.
And bookings dropped off 80%, and we lost everything at a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And that's when I learned what the barrel of my gun tasted like, literally. I tell the audience, spoiler alert, I did not pull the trigger. A friend of mine came up after a keynote recently. He never heard me say, I didn't pull the trigger. And he said this, and I quote, "Hey, man, how come you didn't pull the trigger?" So, hey, man, if you try to say it lightly, that's disappointed. That's where the humor is in speaking on suicide prevention. It's not jokes. It's funny, personal anecdotes. So in 2012, I'd always wanted to be a speaker. I'd always wanted to have something to teach people. And I realized, given my near suicide, given the fact I live with 2 mental illnesses, that there are more nuts in my family than in a squirrel turd, that I could keynote on suicide prevention if I got some training, and I did. And then my second thing, Leo, was that who's going to take me seriously after 2.5 decades of comedy? So I thought, I'll do a TEDx. I applied for one. I got my first one, which is rather rare. I just got lucky. And it was on suicide prevention. And all of a sudden, the meeting planners and speakers bureaus realized I could do something literally deadly serious with humor, of course. And that was the beginning of my TEDx career and my speaking on suicide prevention career. And then after I got 3 or 4 TEDx talks, speakers, friends, "Hey man, help me get a TEDx talk." And I would. And then a business coach friend of mine called me and she said, "Frank, I get the strange sensation that you're teaching people how to get a TEDx for free." And that got to stop. He had a friend who built websites. He built me a TEDx coaching website. And then I did that. Then I began coaching. And then I realized also people want to know how to make money speaking on luxury cruises, colleges, corporation associations. So that became the other side of the business, was the make money speaking side. So I coach planning and leveraging a TEDx, and also how to make money speaking.
There's so much to dive into there. What a history, and what a story, and what a beautiful way to take obviously a very dark struggles and chapter and be able to bless people from it and to make something amazing out of it. So yeah, we're very glad that you didn't obviously pull the trigger and that you're here with us today. We're definitely, that's a very good thing. But we're going to get into like how to make money with speaking and all of that. But I think TEDx can be a good entry point for a lot of people and can benefit the other half of this conversation a lot if people get into a TEDx talk. So if someone wants to, I mean, all of us, right? We're all like, oh yeah, Sunday, that would be great, right? But if someone actually truly wants to tackle this, what do we need to know before, trying to climb that mountain, get that TEDx talk?
Well, you need to know that don't make the application links to apply easy to find. So you can, if you type into Google, TEDx applications 2025, because there's usually a long lead time. Mm-hmm. And what you're looking for is not an official TED site, but the website of the actual TEDx. Each one is operated independently. So you're looking for TEDxNashville.com, TEDxChicago.com. And it's as simple as filling out the application, but I would recommend you fill out a couple a week because there are 200 in the U.S. It is a bit of a numbers game. I got mine on the first time. I've had a client who just got 2 after we worked on 3 applications, which is unheard of. But I had a client who, it took him 90 tries. Bless his heart. Wow. He hung in there and he got it on the 90th try. So you need to be patient. It needs to be one idea. it actually dovetails nicely with my advice for entrepreneurs of any stripe.
Mm-hmm.
You need to pick a lane.
Yes.
Do something, one thing, and do it better than anyone else. Become the thought leader or expert. In other entrepreneurial pursuits, become the expert, the go-to person. If it's an auto body shop here in Eugene, everybody's really environmentally sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
Just the green. So a friend of mine, Todd, he had a body shop, and he decided his lane was going to be all the products he uses, all the paints, the lacquers, the whatever, are green, they're environmentally friendly. They're more expensive. It takes longer to dry and such, but I'm going to have some body work done. Somebody hit me, did a little damage to my car. He's 6 weeks out. Fortunately, my car is still drivable, but because he read the market, picked environmentally sensitive auto body and paint, and he's I've got a friend who runs radio stations. He owns radio stations here in town. Got an opportunity to pick up a third one. Those licenses don't come up very often. And there were 2 stations in town that were doing new country. And he saw the vacuum, he saw the opening. Why did the second new country station go new country when there's already somebody doing it? He went classic country, boom. So yeah. He's got the market to himself on class. So, you pick one thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure you and Todd probably have this happen all the time. People approach you on LinkedIn, I got this great business opportunity. It's passive income, 3 hours a week. Yeah. I'm not a big believer in side hustles. I think that just takes hours away from your primary revenue source. That's why I speak on one thing, suicide prevention. I tell speakers, just pick one thing. And I picked half a dozen ideal clients, that people who have industries that have suicide problems that are really bad. So I didn't pick environmentally sensitive paint for cars. I picked half a dozen occupations that have the problem I can help them solve. So when they call me up, I don't have to convince them. Suicide prevention is a great idea. They know that. They're trying to figure out which suicide prevention speaker they're going to hire. So again, for any kind of entrepreneur, I think is, become, the Seinfeld episode, the master of your domain. And an entirely different idea of that episode, but you have to be a Seinfeld fan to get it. But yeah, I think the riches are in the niches. I think that's and social media, same way. You're an entrepreneur. Figure out which social media platform your ideal clients are on, and go deep, not wide. Yeah. I mean, have the others and put a little something up now and then to keep them active. I chose LinkedIn because that's where my clients are. I have Facebook and Facebook, but I spend all my efforts on all my marketing money on LinkedIn because that's where my clients are. Got to fish where the fish are.
100%. So, okay, I love it. Narrowing in, being super specific. Absolutely. That's on point with everything that we teach and what we do. And I like what you said about side hustles too. Like side hustles, if you have a job and it's a side hustle that you're working to build into a business to replace the job, I think that's one thing and that's great. But if you've got a primary business and now you're working a side hustle, I couldn't even imagine trying to succeed at both. I think my head would explode and I would fail utterly.
And between I do coach and speak, but I'm coaching on speaking. I'm coaching and I do TEDx, but I'm coaching on TEDx. So it all sort of dovetails nicely.
It's all together. Yeah.
I don't know how an entrepreneur. If you're an entrepreneur, you shouldn't have time for a side hustle.
No.
It amazes me. I have entrepreneurial friends. They have a business. They go, "What are you doing this weekend?" Same thing I do on the weekdays. What are you talking? There's a Facebook post the other day. What are you doing this summer? What do you think I'm doing this summer? The same thing I do in the winter. If you're an entrepreneur, there shouldn't be. There's no choice. You gave that up when you.
Right. I totally get it. So I'm curious on the application process for TEDx. Is there something that, so be specific, do one thing, right? But what really works, or some tips around the application process?
Well, you want one idea worth spreading. That's their tagline. And you want as little as possible about that idea. That's what kills most applications, is too many ideas or too much on one idea. They don't want a thesis. Right. And you can tell this because they'll say to you, give me a summary of your talk in 3 sentences. Give me an overview of your talk in a 90-second video. here's a tip. Don't do 91 seconds. Because part of that process, the reason they hold you to a number or a number of characters, they want to see if you can follow directions. Yeah. And I would do that if I were looking at those applications, because the average TEDx gets a couple hundred applications. If I've got to go through all those, I'm not looking for a reason to give you an audition. I'm looking for the first thing I can find to throw you in the no pile. And if I think you can't follow directions, it's like job when you're doing, a friend of mine does a job application to hire people for his business. And he puts landmines in there like that, small mention of please attach a resume. And fewer than half attach a resume. They don't read completely, don't follow the directions to the letter. So I don't think they understand that's part of the hiring process.
Yes.
And it's part of the TEDx process. Now, so you one idea, be brief, and be as creative as absolute. Because, if I got 200 applications to go through, whatever you put in those first couple of boxes has got to be grabbing me by the lapels and not let go. And I think it begins with title, subtitle. I've had 2 TEDx talks where my title and subtitle were good enough. I didn't have to audition. The first one was Suicide, the Secret of My Success, which is counterintuitive. Dead Man Talking, the play on Dead Man Walking, the book and the movie. That was number 4. Number 5, my personal favorite, the only one I ever got a standing ovation for, was Mental Health and the Orgasm, Treat Your Depression Single-Handedly. And they said, what's the premise? I said, I love my iPhone, but it's my second favorite handheld device. And they said, you don't have to audition, man. Just come over here and do that.
All right. So creativity. Yeah, I think definitely, brainstorming for those who don't find themselves super creative, get around some people who maybe are more creative, can stretch them a little bit before they start just sitting down and filling out that application.
Or if it's a coach they're hiring, you don't have to hire me. If it's a coach, make sure they have somebody on staff who's creative. A friend of mine signed up with Thought Leader, which is a legitimate company. They put a lot of people on TEDx stages. Yep. But I'm not sure they have anybody creative on the staff, because she applied 80 times. 80. She called me crying. I said, Amy, it's a good topic. It's a good topic. You got a book on Amazon. It's a bestseller, and the category is very difficult. I mean, can you send me what you're sending the TEDx committees? She did. And you know what? Grammar good, I's dotted, T's crossed, but it just didn't sing. So I said to her, would it be okay if I put a little of my crazy creativity on it? She goes, what have I got to lose? 80. Within 5 applications, she got TEDx Beacon Street, Boston, which told me that it's that creativity that catches their attention, forces them to read more of the application. So also passion. That TEDx is, you need to be passionate about whatever it is. There's a book called Talk Like Ted. And he watched 500, the guy named Carmine, watched 500 TEDx talks, figured out 9 things he thinks are in every great one. Number 1 is passion. You have to have a passion. It's hard to be inspiring if you're not inspired. Passion, humor, prize for the audience, and 6 things I can never remember. But I wrote my TEDx, then I bought the book, and then I rewrote it because I believed him. I thought these things, and with my clients, I try to get all 9 things into the.
Yeah.
So, and apply. Because I've had people say to me, I applied 2 or 3 times, didn't get it, gave up. No. You have to, it's a numbers game. You got to keep applying.
So when you're applying repeatedly, are you applying to the same ones, or is there a limit on how many times you can apply within a certain time frame, or how does that work?
No, I have applied to the same ones, year over year, where I didn't get it 1 year, but I figured, I would come back and try again the following year. And there's no limit to how often you can apply. Now, there are limits. They may say, if you've done a TEDx in the last 6 months, or you've got one planned in the 6 months to come, then we don't want, or some of them are geographically limited. TEDx Chicago, got to live in Chicagoland area. TEDx San Diego, got to live in San Diego County. Salt Lake City, same thing. But most of them take all comers. Just they want people. I've never done one I didn't have to fly to, except a couple of virtual ones I did during the pandemic. But I've always had to fly to wherever I was going to be doing the TEDx.
Now, with these TEDx talks, do you get paid to talk on TEDx, or is it something that you do for free because you're getting exposure, or how does that work?
I tell my clients, the good news is you don't pay them. The bad news is they don't pay you. And you have to fly yourself there. couple of them actually kicked us all a couple $100 because they made a lot of money. And that was really nice. They didn't have to. No, what you're hoping is to use that. There's no cash move, payment. But if you're wise and you leverage it, you can use your TEDx to build your brand, increase your speaking fees, and get more speaking engagements. Unfortunately, that's where most speakers, TEDx talkers, and TEDx coaches drop the ball. They figure it goes up on YouTube, the world's going to be the path to your door. So, no, it's not going to happen because how many 100,000 videos go up on YouTube in a day? So the course I teach has 5 modules plus module 6 is just that. How do you leverage? Because what you want is you want to have all your marketing in place the moment it goes up on YouTube, so you can pull the trigger and begin. You have to know where to post on social media, what and how often, and and how to network and collaborate. So to leverage that TEDx, like I said, build your brand, raise your fees, and get more speaking gigs.
Gotcha. So you want to have all your ducks in a row. You want to have your freebie funnel ready. You want to have your website ready so that once the talk is published, you're ready to deal with the traffic and actually do something with the traffic coming in.
Yes, because and on YouTube, I'm told, and I believe the guy told me this, that first 24 hours is crucial because supposedly the algorithm looks at the views the first 24 hours differently than it looks at views after that. So the more you can pile on, the more views you get. You network through, collaborate. Please send it to your list, please. Then the better, the more often they'll show it, or the easier come higher up in the searches.
So once you do your TEDx talk, you can leverage that to get paid to do other speaking gigs, and you can do it at a higher price. Is that right?
Yes, I started at $2,500 before my first TEDx, and I've gotten up to $12,500 with the every TEDx. 12,500. Yes.
Nice.
I give for that money. I give you a 45-minute keynote, a 45-minute breakout, and I'll do 45 minutes of stand-up comedy at your banquet. It's also a trick. It's also an NLP trick in that you give them a high price. Well, if it's $12,500 for my all-inclusive program plus travel, what does that include? Well, keynote, breakout, 45 minutes of comedy. Well, we really don't want the breakout or the comedy at the $7,500 for the keynote. Which sounds a lot better than $12,500. So, I tell them, okay, I'll settle for the keynote. $7,500, 45 minutes. Hello.
Yeah, I like that. That's one of those things that when we first kind of started dipping our toes into the entrepreneurship space, so it was with network marketing. And I remember looking at those network marketing videos, and when they presented the price for, getting started with your package or whatever, they always started with the lowest price one, which was, sometimes it was $100 or whatever. And it's like, people are already kind of cringing at that. And then the next package comes along and it's even more. And it's like the deal just keeps getting worse and worse, right? Versus when you learn real marketing and you do it the other way, it's like you always start. And actually, what a neat trick we learned from one of our marketing friends is that you come up with your own package that's like double the price of the actual highest package, and you use that just like you said, kind of to do price conditioning. It's like, okay, so if you're really serious about your business and you want to take off running and you want to give yourself the best start possible, our premium package is $3,500. And, people are going to be like, it's sticker shock, right? But, for a lot of people, that may be a bigger investment than what you planned for. And, but you still want to build a serious business and you want to get going fast. And so we have a lower price package. It's kind of middle of the road. It's $1,500. And then for people who just want to be customers and blah, 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 it's, we've got a, $300 package or whatever. Everybody takes that middle package, right? Which, you create the biggest one just to have it there. You don't really plan on selling it, but you want to get people over that sticker shock. I love that you're doing that with your speaker fees.
Well, and we just put together a $10,000 program called Speaker Accelerator. We guarantee you a TEDx in 90 days. We guarantee you $50,000 in speaking fees on the calendar in six months, guaranteed in writing, or your money back plus $5,000. It's a ridiculous refund offer. You have to perform. You have to do everything we ask you to, fill out the applications and copy us. If you do that, all the stuff that's in the program and it doesn't work out, worst case, you get your money back plus we pay you $5,000. So as soon as it's constructed, we already have 3 people in this end of the funnel going through the program. But as soon as we get the speaking part of it done, which should be by Monday, my coaching fee now, individual coaching fee, an hour a week on Zoom is $10,000. It's going to $25,000. So when I go, well, listen, you could hire me individually. We'll do an hour a week on Zoom, till you get a TEDx. We both die trying. How much is that? That's $25,000. How much is that program online again?
Yes. Much better.
Supposedly every Starbucks supposedly has like a $3,000 espresso machine on the shelf somewhere in the store, strictly for that reason. Nobody's going to buy. They just have to dust it off every week. But it's that platinum premium. Makes everything else, makes the $5 latte look cheap.
So now once you get on TEDx, you've kind of built your brand. You've got you can put that on your resume now. And you're going out and you're getting paid to speak in other venues. So typically what we've heard is that you either get paid to speak or you speak for free and then they let you sell from stage. But from what I remember of our conversation, you've got a way where you can kind of do both, right?
Yes. One is speak to sell, and I do that where I've got one coming up, a webinar on the 16th and 17th, 90 minutes each day. I'm going to give them a lot of education about TEDx and speaking. And then end of each day, I make an offer. So that's speak to sell. So they get the webinar for free, speak to sell. And then, but keynoting, my idea is you get paid to keynote. You get your $7,500 to keynote. And let's say you're a coach, and maybe you coach on the topic you're keynoting on. I've got a guy who he created a program for recruiting and retaining top talent in construction. And he keynotes on that. But he's also got a coaching program, online coaching program. So he makes sure the MC mentions the online coaching program in the introduction. Mm-hmm. And then he starts into his keynote and he gets to a point where he says, look, I'd love to give you more on this, which is part of his coach stuff in this coaching package, but I've only got 45 minutes. If in fact you would like to know more about this, I've got a breakout at 1:00. Join me there. Mm-hmm. And there's something called Talkadot. It's a software for speakers or anybody, I guess. It creates a QR code you put on the screen, goes to a survey. First survey question is, do you have an event you'd like to book Frank King for? And then it goes into, was it relevant? Was it helpful? Was it, and they produce this graph, or these graphs and there's a place for testimonials and comments. And then you put right next to the QR code a coupon code for a freebie. Mm-hmm. So if they grab the freebie, then you get their name, address, company, and phone number. And if they check the first box, yes, I've got an event, there's a little flame by their name in the CRM, hot lead. So there are ways to very subtly, and the first time I did that, I was doing a breakout, there were 28 people, 27 people, 28 people, I guess. And 18 of them opted in and gave me email addresses, phone numbers, and their, what business they were in. 2 of them were hot leads. I've never collected 18 business cards after I've spoken, especially not for a group of 28. So that's 2/3 of the people there. So Talkadot is a great way, regardless of what kind of business you're in, because you can, the survey, you can change the questions. But that's a way to, and before that, I just said, look, I'm going to give you everything I can on this in 45 minutes. If you'd like to continue the conversation for any reason, here's a QR code. Hit me up, grab a spot on my calendar, virtual coffee, I'm buying. So even without Talkadot, just a QR code, very subtle way of selling without selling.
Nice.
And if you're solving a problem like suicide prevention, and I'm speaking to a construction association, everybody in the audience is a construction company, and every one of them has a suicide problem. So I could pick up a couple of spin-off speaking engagements just by speaking and showcasing and get paid for it.
So as far as after your TED Talk, where else are you going to be looking to speak at? because I'm sure there's kind of like these adjacent, related industries that your talk could relate to that you could get on as well. Where are you looking primarily to speak and get paid to speak?
Well, depends on the client. I spoke to a woman today she's been in the health and safety field for a long time, worked at Amazon, worked at Google. I mean, some really big companies and, big time jobs. And so that's going to be her first ideal client is the big tech like that, health and safety for big tech. Then I asked him, well, did you have any other jobs? Oh yeah, my family had a construction company. So whoever it is, grew up in construction. I'm sure they talked about it at the dinner table, so they understand the business, they know the language. So, all right, we're going after construction companies. And so we're looking for natural markets. I talked to an accountant this morning, a Black woman. She wants to speak, and she helps a lot of entrepreneurs. And I said, well, what do you say we pitch? There are Black Entrepreneurs Associations. I said, you should be pitching any entrepreneurs with the word Black in the association: Black funeral directors, Black bankers, Black dentists, Black professionals, and you're a woman. So, the problems for a woman from an accounting standpoint can be different, woman-owned business than a male-owned business. So I said there's women in construction, women in manufacturing. So we start with Black entrepreneurs, and then Black associations, and then women's associations would be her first 3 ideal client groups, because she's very relatable to all 3.
And then as far as like we know what your speaking fees are, but if you're just starting out, maybe you just finished your first TED Talk, how do you determine how much you're going to charge? Like, do you just throw a price out there, or do you ask, what are they willing to pay? Like, how do you determine a price, or how do you negotiate that with, and is that price different for different venues that you speak at?
I recommend in my clients, no. I believe you pick a fee, and I tell them, look, $5,000 plus travel is a sort of a price point nowadays in the speaking business for a number of reasons. One, a meeting planner may not book you if you're charging less because they think it's a hobby. 2, at $5,000, there's a perceived value. They figure for $5,000, you must know what you're talking about. And I don't ask what their budget is. I just say my fee is $5,000, and then they volunteer whatever their budget. And I have several ways can teach my clients to discount and get value in return. I've got something called a make it work menu. On the menu are things that the client can do for me that won't cost them anything, but be very valuable from a marketing standpoint. For example, they want $500 off, 2 LinkedIn recommendations. They want another $500 off the top, 2 video testimonials before I leave the venue. Are you going to record it on video professionally? I'll knock $1,500 off the top if I get it on a flash drive, a USB drive before. So there are ways to discount. So you start with retail. And I think 5,000 is, and I've had speakers say to me, well, it depends on the size of the group and blah, blah, blah. No. Nonprofit, I get that. We're a nonprofit. Guess what? I'm not. Yeah, so nonprofit, profit, well, it was a small group. I don't care how many it is. It's just not same price regardless. I will negotiate and use that make it work menu to get value in return. Or I've got books. I go, look, do you have a budget for education, or I don't know, something for everybody's swag bag? Great. How about if I sell you a book for everybody to bulk rate? Sort of make up the difference in my fee with book sales. So there, but I say you set a fee, and you do your best to stick to it, and I tell them to practice, because a lot of them go, how can I charge $5,000 for a keynote? I've never done a keynote. Let's charge for it. Here's the magic: you ask for it. What? And I have them practice in the mirror in the bathroom. $5,000 plus travel, $5,000 plus travel, $5,000 plus travel. So it just rolls off the tongue when like they say it every day.
So I loved how you kind of laid out the different types of organizations and angles that you can go at for speaking clients or venues. How do you start those conversations? So if you just Google, you found a list of potential associations or something that maybe would fit for what you do, how do you make those initial introductions and like have that conversation about speaking? What's the best way to do that?
Well, it depends on who you ask. I've got a friend who's older than I am, and he believes you need to be making 15 phone calls, cold calls a day. And he goes, Frank, what are you going to do about that? I go, I wouldn't make a cold call unless it was part of a plea bargain. I call up the association, and let's say construction. They've got a serious suicide problem. And I would say, hey, can I speak to the editor of the newsletter? And I offer to the newsletter editor, I'd like to write an article for your newsletter. So you're giving value first. Mm-hmm. And then somewhere in the conversation, a friend of mine calls it a doorknob close as you're going out the door. Oh, I did some homework. You got a conference coming up in November, and I speak on this topic. Who books the speakers here at the association? I would love to toss my hat in the ring. So no cold call, no cold email. You're inside. You've given value first. Hopefully you create a little social obligation, and they'll either, transfer you, introduce you by email. So I believe in giving value first as a way to figure out. And the great thing about that is state associations, those newsletters never leave the state boundary. So you can use the same article in 50 states. Mm. So it's not like it's going to be a lot of work. But I would start with somehow give them value first.
It sounds like that's going to be like a lot of legwork to find the contact information, make the phone calls, maybe play a little phone tag. Is that something that you can outsource? Would you recommend that, or would you recommend personally making those calls?
Yeah, some people use VAs to do that. Since I don't phone calls, except to call up and go, hey, I would not outsource the, hey, can I contribute an article? Mm-hmm. I think it's important for the speaker to make the call, those, because there's not going to be that many of them. It's not like, smiling and dialing just one right after another. And, and nowadays, most people, it's going to go to voicemail anyway. So if you're going to do that, have your voicemail script handy. Mm-hmm. You know what you're going to say on the voicemail. Keep it short, keep it sweet. It's like email nowadays. A lot of white space, few words. We live in a 144 character world. People skim before they read. So make sure it's just a couple lines, very, very much. And by the way, I do some outbound, I get a list of 100 speaker leads a week, 100 conferences looking for speakers. Some want a marketing email. So I put together their marketing email with the help of ChatGPT. Because if they want a summary of my speech, then I go to chat, I put in my website and the URL of the association and the URL of their event. And I say, please give me a 250-word summary and make it relevant to both their URLs. So what comes out is not just a generic summary, it's a summary, about what I can do at their conference for them on the problems they're trying to solve. Very much customized from the subject line all the way through the summary and learning objectives. It mentions them every step of the way, rather than just a generic. Yeah, it's ChatGPT or Perplexity. It just, every now and then I'll say to Chat, listen, here's their website. Here's all the CE, continuing education classes and tell me what I've got that they can use. And the first time it happened last week, Chat came back and said, you got nothing. He said, yeah, there's nothing that you do that they need. Okay, well, it's a time. And I'm not going to waste my time, filling it out. But that's the beauty of Chat. It can do that like that.
So when you're first starting out with this, and so you're starting with the $5,000 speaker fee, how do you know, or how do you determine when you should raise your price and how much?
Well, I'm a little embarrassed to say, but I think I'm not the only one who suffers from this. I've never raised my fee until somebody said to me, what? No. Oh, you need to be charging $7,500 minimum. Really? Yes. Done. So I think we undervalue what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A friend of mine who's in another speaker, she goes, Frank, I was reading your bio and your intro. No mention of the fact you wrote jokes for the Tonight Show for 20 years. I said, well, a lot of people wrote. She goes, the public doesn't know that.
Yeah.
That should be the first line of your bio and the first line of your, he was a writer for the Tonight Show for 20 years. And she was right. It never occurred to me because because I knew a lot of people who'd done it, and it didn't seem like that big a deal. But, to a civilian, it's a big deal. And so it often helps to have somebody on the outside looking in. Ask them, what do you think I should charge? What do you think I'm worth? What do you think my strong points are? What do you think my weak points are? Where am I falling down on the job? What opportunities am I missing? I mean, some difficult questions. You should be prepared. It's like a friend of mine she's pitching a TED Talk on ask your friends for 5 keywords or keyword phrases or hashtags, 5 hashtags that describe you. Ask friends, family, and colleagues, coworkers. Now, the question is, are those the ones you'd pick for yourself? Are you happy the ones they picked? Or are you really upset by the ones they picked? Because, we don't see ourselves as others do. I'm guessing most of them would be positive, but instructive in some cases, I imagine.
One would imagine. So we've talked a lot about how to get speaking opportunities, how to price them, all that kind of stuff. What about actually creating your keynote speech, like the speech itself? Like for someone who wants to be a speaker, they've got a topic of expertise that they can speak on, but they've never actually structured a keynote speech before. What should that really look like?
I think the opening should be one of 3 things. It should be a quote, your favorite quote, a favorite quote, or a quote that fits the situation. It should be a startling statistic. My first TEDx talk opens with, every year in the United States, 8 million people seriously consider suicide, 1.4 million attempt. And in 2023, over 50,000 ended their lives. Whoa. So that's a startling statistic. Or 3 questions. I opened one of my TEDx talks with, what if mental illness is not a genetic mutation, but an amazing evolutionary adaptation? And what if mental illness is, as Malcolm Gladwell says of such things in his book, David and Goliath, a desirable disadvantage? You would never wish it on anyone, but it does come with certain advantages. And what if we could convince a child of that? Yes, you have a mental disability, but here's what they probably haven't told you. You may have some mental abilities your peers cannot touch. It would reduce stigma and bullying, and I think eventually youth suicide. And the name of the talk was Mental with Benefits, the Evolutionary Advantages of Mental Illness, because I kept bumping into people that had a mental challenge, but some other amazing superpower. And I thought, this cannot be a coincidence. And turns out, Kanye West, politics aside, is a musical genius, one of the musical geniuses of his generation. Too bad he's not a PR genius, but that's another story. But he lives with bipolar disorder, I do believe. And I just kept bumping into people like that who had some issue, but they just had this, I believe my comedic ability, imagination, creativity is just the flip side of my depression, thoughts, and suicide. Same brain, same wiring. There's a reason when somebody heckles me, I can heckle back literally without thinking. People come up afterwards and go, how'd you think that response to the heckler? I didn't think it. When you heard it, I heard it. I have no idea where that came from.
As you look at people like Robin Williams and the names go on and on and on and on, right? So I think you definitely have something there.
Yeah, untreated bipolar, I think, with Robin. I think he joked about his drug addiction, recovery, and so forth at length, never about depression and, I believe thoughts of suicide, in part because if you're going to do a movie, production company buys a life insurance policy on you. And if you tell the life insurance agent you're having thoughts of suicide, you may not be making that movie. So I can see why he wouldn't have been forthcoming about that part of his life.
Yeah.
Kind of back to like the schedule and the logistics of this. So if once you start getting paid to speak, you're kind of promoting your business on the back end, you're generating leads, you're moving people on to, into your email list and nurturing them there. How often should you be speaking, or how often can you speak? Like, is this a weekly thing? Are you doing this multiple times a week? Is it just once a month? Like, what type of a schedule should you expect to be holding with this?
Well, my goal is 3 or 4 times a month, corporate engagements, 3 or 4 times a month. And I was this close right before COVID. And I'm building it back up. But I think 3 or 4 times a month is reasonable. And however, my clients will say to me, how long is it going to take to go from scratch to full time? And I said, well, it depends on who you ask. There are people who will tell you, 90 days and 7 figures, but it's probably going to be 18 to 24 months from scratch. Now you're going to get some bookings along the way, and you're going to be making $5,000 for 45 minutes, a damn good part-time job. But, it's going to take you probably 18 to 24 months. I'd rather under promise and over deliver.
Right.
Just manage their expectations.
Yeah. And I know for a lot of coaches, course creators, people doing digital products, and they want to build the brand and all that, an extra 15 to 20,000 a month on top of what they're making with coaching. I mean, that's, for most people, that's probably more than they're making with their coaching business right now, or double it. Right. So and then you're getting clients from that. So yeah, that's pretty nice.
Yes, you're picking up. Yeah. I get a lot of coaches who become my clients, and I go, look, you're not a coach and a speaker. You're a speaker and a coach. Let the speaking lead the parade. Let the speaking market the coaching. Because there are just lots of coaches, tons of coaches. I've started calling myself, rather than a coach, speaker teacher. Because I love teaching, but coach, the word, it's sort of been watered down.
Yeah.
I've heard the discussion recently about making sure you have a book first before you go into speaking, or vice versa. Do you have a preference or think there's benefits in making sure to do one first, then the other?
I don't think you have to do it first, but I would recommend that you, as you're building your speaking career, put a book together. Because again, it's going to sell more. You're going to sell a whole lot more of them, either pre-sell them or post-sell them at a speech than you ever are on Amazon. And it's a way of, if you don't quite have your fee, but they're willing to buy books, say, your money's about the same. I like to use them as a business card. Occasionally, if I'm going to some kind of function where there are going to be a lot of people who could potentially book me, and I'll only have to pay the author's price, then I'll, at the exhibit hall, if there are only like 30 to 50 people there, I'm happy to give everybody a book, because or if I'm on stage and I've arranged to sell them at the back of the room when I'm done, then I ask a question, somebody raises their hand, they answer, I give them a book. And then I do it again to prime the pump. And then I say to the audience, look, if you didn't get a book, don't worry, there's a ton of them in the back on a table. I can see them from here. That's my big sales pitch. And I get one of the staff members of the association to run the credit card, so I can sign the books and chat up the audience. I'm not trying to do 3 things at once.
Good.
But yeah, nice. Book's not going to hurt I believe in marketing with a book and a keynote. I've got a friend who has a publishing house, boutique, and he only takes on speakers who want to do a book. And then he believes once they've got the book, then they market with a book and a keynote.
What I like about what you do, and especially with your experience, is adding that creativity and using that to put the hook into your keynote and into your application and all that. Because I really think that's key. I know that with us, when we run ads, when we do a post on Facebook or Instagram or wherever it is, that those first couple lines, the image that you're using, like, it needs to catch people's attention in order for it to pay off and for there to be a positive ROI. And I know, are you familiar with Harmon Brothers?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, they're a video production company. They do all those funny ads. So if you remember, like the Squatty Potty and some of those other, they're kind of longer form ads, but they inject humor in it. And their philosophy is that it's easier to teach a comedian how to do marketing versus trying to teach a marketer how to be funny. And I think for so many entrepreneurs, like, we have the grasp of marketing, but we're not necessarily as funny as we think we are sometimes. And so, having a guy like you in your corner, I think, is really valuable, because you can help with that part of it. That, so much of that is just innate, right? You just have a natural ability for it. You can exercise the muscle, but if you struggle with that, I think that's one of the fastest ways you can take what you're doing and just really, really exponentially getting bigger results with it, just by increasing that creativity and things like that. So if people want to learn more about what you do, they want to connect with you, they want to see how you can help, how do they connect with you?
Well, it's howtomakemoneyspeaking.com.
Oh.
I know. And I was struggling for one. And my wife, who doesn't know a lot about, URLs, the internet, from the kitchen, I heard her say, why don't you just buy howtomakemoneyspeaking.com? And I'm thinking, yeah, that's going to be available in 2024. And I typed in GoDaddy. Oh my God, it's available.
Check out quick.
Yeah, Lord. I mean, I was sure that was gone. I just, howtomakemoneyspeaking.com. On the mental health side, it's mentalhealthcomedian.com. As far as I know, I'm the only mental health comedian working out there. There's a niche. And people ask me, do they not book you because you're a comic and you speak on suicide? No. They want the lived experience. They want the teaching and the fact that I can leaven it with some well-placed, organic, tasteful humor because it's a difficult subject.
Right.
So, yep. So that's, by the way, I worked in radio one summer when I've been doing cruise ship comedy since 2009. And one summer, in their infinite wisdom, the cruise lines decided they would just have the singers and dancers, the cast, do the extra nights. And it went really badly. Next year, comics are back. But I got a job at a radio station. And to your point about taking the comic and teaching marketing, I had voiceover classes in LA, and I discovered I could write good copy and, 60-second copy. And so and most of it was funny. It was funny, and there's always a hook. And I would add words to the ad that you wouldn't normally hear on a radio ad to catch their ear. My most popular commercial was about a cat we had that had this really horrible nasal thing going on. And so it starts like this. I have a confession. My wife and I, we have 8 cats. We're the crazy cat people in the neighborhood. We have one cat named Snotty Dotty. Yeah, we took her to our old pet. 9 months, poking and prodding and prednisone. Have you ever tried to give a cat a pill? I think that was one of the 12 labors of Hercules. I had to wear a welder's mask and foul gloves. Otherwise, she scratched me so bad I bled like I had hemorrhagic fever. So there's a bunch of words in there you never hear on the radio. And right. I was calling in to set an appointment for one of our animals because we use that clinic. Like 3 months later, I said, "How are things going?" They go, "We had to add this. We had to add the staff, and it's your fault." People call every day, "I want Snotty Dotty's vet." So, and I took Snotty Dotty to the emergency vet one night because there's something going on that I thought might be an emergency. So we're checking in, and the young woman at the, looks down at the paperwork. She goes, "Wait a minute, is this the Snotty Dotty?" That's a good ad.
Yes, that is a good ad. That's a good pattern interrupt. I love it.
And something I did that the other salespeople didn't do, they used to have copywriters in radio. Now they force the sales execs to write copy. What could possibly go wrong? So I not only wrote the copy, I voiced it, and then I created a commercial, a spec spot. And everybody else at the station had a 20% close rate. I had a 95% close rate because I would actually create a commercial, write it, voice it, take it out, play it for the client. And here's how here's a selling, a buying signal. I'd play it, and I knew they're going to buy if they said, "Can I hear that again?" It's to hold the puppy closed. Handle the puppy, they're not giving it back. And so yeah, they taught me marketing. I brought the funny and the voiceover and whatever, but they taught me, okay, that's how this works. All right.
This has been an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for being with us, Frank.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I guess somebody, fortunately, couldn't make it today, and I got the spot.
Yay.
Hey, it's like comedy. Life's all about timing.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
You've been listening to the Digital Trailblazer podcast. For show notes and information about today's guest, head to digitaltrailblazer.com. Now, if you love this episode, if you got some value, make sure you leave us a review and subscribe. And be sure to share this episode with anyone you know who could use help to build their business. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.